Getting some sound in my headphones. So yeah, this is in no way connected to Stanford. It's a separate institution. We are incorporated in UK. And basically what we were up to, or what we were trying to do, was the edutainment platform for lawyers and creation of masterclasses for and by lawyers, um, as well as the Future Law Virtual Summit. However, when we were about to pitch the whole thing and present it at the LegalX Summit in London this March, well, the COVID actually bumped into and prevented us from traveling anywhere. So ironically, we weren't really able to present our idea about a virtual summit. However, collecting all the networks and reaching out to a lot of lawyers enabled a very unique collaboration, which is now actually resulting in a very nice database, which we call the Global COVID Policy Response database. So basically what we've been inspired by, or more or less what we were observing, was the fragmentation of the whole legal system, which I'm pretty sure you are aware of as well. It's quite hard to track all the legal challenges or all the legal changes that are being presented by our governments right now. We here are having a lot of, well, a lot of ordinances being passed, but there's 2 mega laws being presented, and lawyers are, for example, giving out the opinions, as well as the official organizations and the official agencies. And funnily enough, sometimes those opinions are actually in a contradiction. And once you multiply that to the global and the world aspect, you get to realize that it's very fragile. And it's kind of hard to comprehend how the system works. And we're actually dealing with a very complex society here. That being said, we wanted to give lawyers and global citizens kind of a chance to keep an eye on how our human rights are being respected and how governments are, for example, respecting the rule of law. And this is why we kind of initiated the global sprints, which are taking place till the end of April, every 2 days. We are kind of having and gathering for 3 hours and combining efforts to put together as many resources as possible along the way, because this only happened or came together 3 weeks ago. We've actually got to realize that there's a lot of different organizations that are doing similar things from different aspects. Just to give you an overview of where we are right now, we've actually been able to put together a website in 24 hours that presents all of those people and organizations that are also putting data together. So it's good that we're not alone in this. At the same time, it's very beneficial for all of us to see that there is others that are putting together resources from different angles. So for example, there's Oxford, there's MIT focusing on surveillance measures and the privacy policies and privacy by design. There's Arcturus group that has been like a lobby group that has been putting together a lot of measures from sanitary, the economics, and the institutional aspect, and all the rest of them, right? So our first step was actually to scrape as much data as possible to get it all together. Our second step was to add even more data, because we lawyers are kind of nitpicking sometimes. So we want to know what the date of issuing that policy was, what the date of publishing that policy was, what's the date when that policy went into effect. And then at the end of the day, we actually want to know whether there's an expiry date as well. Interestingly enough, we've actually got quite a lot of learnings along the way. So we got to understand that a lot of these legal measures right now that are being issued due to COVID-19 are not really having sunset clauses, meaning that there is no expiration date whatsoever, which actually handicaps the rule of law. And I can actually show you how the database looks right now. So first of all, we want to have it kind of standardized. So the third step will definitely be to kind of have this database as comprehensive as possible and as synced as possible, so that we can do some cross-indexing. We have quite a lot of countries already. I believe there's 68 of them. We now have the collaboration between 70 lawyers. Not all of them are joining the calls, but we are also having 2 different calls per day so that we kind of cover all the time zones. It's not working for some reason. So, all right. Just a just a quick overview of how we started. We actually started on Notion. So Margaret gave me a call one day and she said, okay, that's it. I'm fed up with how, anti-fragile and not anti-fragile, how fragmented the whole thing is and how hard it is for me to, as a lawyer, to understand what are the applicable rules right now and what we need to abide to and how it actually happens across different jurisdictions and how this is taking place. So because we were so fed up, we ended up having the idea to bring everything together to create this collaboration among lawyers. And the first thing that we've established was actually a database on Notion, Notion platform being a collaborative workplace that allows you like digital collaboration. But the problem was that it does not really allow the cross indexing. So the first database that we've created was a good one, but it wasn't enough because what we want to achieve the very end of the month, or let's say in 2 months, depending on how fast we're going to be building the database and how many volunteers we're going to get on board. It all depends on how fast we're going to be able to kind of create a visualization and the mapping as well. So not only do we want to have a database, we also want to have some sort of a mapping and some sort of a different results coming out of the database. So we don't yet know what the possible solutions or what a possible results might be, because we now know that a lot of people find it interesting. A lot of people are getting different learnings out of the whole process of how we collect the data. But you know, this might actually come handy to somebody that is dealing with finances, with the economics, or somebody that is actually dealing with the healthcare within their jurisdiction, or how this is actually functioning cross jurisdictions, because a lot of these legal measures are actually covering a lot of different legal areas. So yeah, the first thing that we started is the Notion, and we quite fast actually migrated into the Google Sheets, which are not really working with me today. So while this is actually loading, I'm going to show you the web page. So we are still looking for more partners. We are looking for more databases. We are going to be cross-indexing it with all the data that we are collecting from different resources. Just to give you a quick overview of who is already on board with us, although I do believe that the contributors are constantly being added by our developer. So we've initiated it. We have an incredible advisory group. They've been actually helping us since day one. There's been a recurring question, which is also part of the inspiration to us, and that is to answer what it is that we need to keep doing, what it is that we actually recognize as something that functions well in our system and we need to do it more often, maybe what it is that we need to immediately stop doing. And I hope that that is to have so many different fragmented databases. It's kind of hard for lawyers to even find the original resource that would be a trustworthy resource. So I hope that that's going to be something that we stop doing immediately after the crisis is over, if not even before. And then the third question is, what do we need to start doing right away? So those three questions are kind of an inspiration, and we are asking all the people to answer them along the research. And then the contributors are really amazing people. They have access to databases and possess a lot of knowledge with regards to how the law functions in their own jurisdiction, as well as some people are actually international lawyers. That means that they actually were able to kind of contribute to what are the legal measures when we look at the world organizations such as the IMF, the World Bank, and others. So going back to our spreadsheet, I hope it's going to work. Yeah. So we are trying to focus on the official title and citation. I think that that's very important for the further analysis, the research that we're going to do. We're collecting both of them, the citation in the native language, as well as the translation that sometimes we actually have to do manually. Then there's the log type. This has already been integrated with another database that we had access to. And then what type of a measure we have, so which area is being covered by that legal measure, be it the area of healthcare, the economics, social distancing, or whatever. And then the non-compliance, so what type of a sanction applies if we're not complying with that measure. The link to official resource or file, we actually figured out that governments are tend to change their links or the access to whatever source we're getting from them. So at first, we're now collecting all the links, but we are already asking our contributors to kind of get those resources and save them in a place, let's say a Google Drive or something, and then to attach the link to that Google Drive instead. So this is why we have another column, source file, yes or no. And then the date published, date of effect, and expiry. Now, for example, in my country, we had to put in more dates because that's what the officials do. So we are trying to kind of follow the same pattern. And then the source of organization, so that we know who is the authority that is pushing out those resources, those laws. A quick short summary, which is not really diving into what that measure does for the citizens at all, but just really a concise summary of the measure, and then whether this is a hard or a soft law. This is actually something that was very important as well at first. So while we are starting and still getting more and more people on board, we try to collect the resources that are coming from the top of the authority. So be it a prime minister signing something or a president signing a decree or the government passing the law. These are usually the hard laws. And then moving towards regional bylaws or subsidiary guidelines, stuff like that. So the broader the policy and the less it's actually binding to the citizens, the more it becomes a soft law. This is definitely something that we want to keep an eye on as well. And then there's all the different areas that we just like to mark with a cross, and that's pretty much it. So
Great.
far, yeah, that's pretty much it, yeah.
Thank you, Anya. That's very cool. So can you tell me a little bit more about the overall goal of this resource? Is this going to be a resource for the academic community to do research on top of this data? Is it for policymakers? Is it for journalists? That's my first question. The other question, can you talk a little bit about the kind of coverage you already have? Like how many countries, how many laws have been passed? And finally, is this going to be, I assume this is going to be openly accessible, but I don't know what you're planning to do with this. But.
Great questions, Roland. Yeah, absolutely. We are actually making an open COVID-19 pledge. So this is definitely going to be openly accessible to everyone. Funnily, you actually asked whether this is going to be for journalists or academics or whomever. We don't know yet, but we're definitely partnering with all of these types of organizations. So for example, Arcturus, which was the first partner we got, is a lobby group. Then we just had a conversation with Policy, We Are Policy. They're actually a group of journalists and are in contact with WHO. So I do believe that this type of a database might actually be of some use to all of them, the academics, the politicians, the lobbyists, the economists, even because all the changes of society are kind of underpinned by the laws that we push out. The reach that we have so far, we are actually covering all the continents. So far we have about 70 lawyers. We're quite strong in the global south. We have quite a lot of lawyers in Europe as well. There's a couple of countries that are still not covered. We are now about to create like this data, the first list. Is going to provide us with an overview of which countries are actually being covered in a very comprehensive way. However, we have some of the contributors here, but it's not the whole list. So these are a couple of the lawyers and contributors that have been putting their names on the first and second sprint. We have a Telegram group as well, where we can exchange daily messages. All the new information that comes from, let's say, the newspapers is also being shared there, and then put into the list of all the resources that we are collecting. So I hope that answers your question, but yeah, we are kind of having quite a lot of lawyers in different areas.
Yeah. All right, I want to see if anyone else has a question for you. And folks, you can unmute yourself so we can hear you, or use the chat function in Zoom. See, anyone has a question? When did you start this effort, actually?
It was started about 2-3 weeks ago. Maybe just to answer your question about what the broader applicability of it is, or interesting, a lot of people are actually asking me why such a database, why this would even be important. I do strongly believe that this is not the first or the last epidemic that we are seeing, and we don't really have a very good response strategy just yet. So
I think, I mean, the why is for me is I think is pretty clear. I think once you, like you said, you know, once you have that information in the future, we might actually be able to develop some best practices around it by comparing approaches and that sort of thing. So it seems to me intuitively valuable information. Was there another question?
Yeah, it's Mike Schmitz. Anya, this is really a great initiative. We're working on a couple things that I think are this points to where local laws are both multiple, they have direct impact, and they're fragmented, and it's very difficult to kind of keep up. There's not a established national level or global body of law, and I think, you know, we're looking at this in other arenas, and the way you're structuring it and the way you're doing the sprints, I think is really, it's great. We're actually building something on blockchain regulation, which is very fragmented all over the map. We're trying to do something similar on that, and then also looking at in the context of climate data policies, you know, so that I think that what you're doing here can be a template for other initiatives to try to, you know, in some ways what you're doing is open sourcing you know, high level legal opinion in a way that really makes it easy for people to get right to it, because there's so much information, but it's so difficult to figure out actually what is being enacted and what is implemented. So thank you for your work. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. This is why it's not only about the GCPR, it's not only about the COVID responses. We would like to look at it a bit broadly. This is why we started thinking about the Future Law Collaborative. It's all about the process and how we get there together. So it really, hopefully, is going to serve as a template for different areas. Also blockchain, yeah, tell me about it. How all these measures are being applied across borders, and how, for example, the America is using the long arm principle and stuff like that. Yeah, those things are definitely worth exploring further.
So, okay, maybe
Roland, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have one. Are you using any kind of discussion group software to help the group communicate back and forth?
I would love to use Lumio or any other software, but so far I'm finding out that lawyers tend to be very tech averse, if I can use that phrase. Not really risk averse, but they're more or less not really tech savvy. So sometimes we are finding ourselves explaining how the Zoom functions and how, for example, one can approach to Google Sheets creation of the entry. And yeah, I mean, when we started using Notion, we were actually advised to use less of the digital tools. Otherwise, Notion is quite handy when it comes to collaboration, or maybe Slack. But let's see. There actually needs to be a stronger initiative for such a tool to be used. I would love to push forward with that as well.
I asked because we've put up some instances of Mattermost, which is an open source version of Slack at the foundation. and we're allowing some groups to use it. So if you ever found it useful, it'd be very easy to put it up, no charge, and it's very handy for communications, and you can put up different channels. So if you're ever interested, let me know.
Are you going to present it after me?
I'm not presenting that specifically, but I am talking about the foundation. It's just a service we're happy to offer.
All right. Yeah, I'm definitely going to look it up.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Anya, and Scott is asking if you see any possibility to extend this to all 200 countries. Laws.
200 or 198 or 7?
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, thereabouts.
We are actually, we hope that we're going to have broader coverage. So yes, all the 200 countries, and this would definitely make it better for the analytics that we're going to have afterwards as well.
All right.
In that vein, sorry, it's Maeve here. In that vein, are you looking for extra volunteers? Where can people sign up? All that information?
Yeah, so if you go to our website here, and on the first page, mind you, the website is still an ongoing effort. But yeah, we do have 2 links. One is to join the collaborative. This is where you are getting all the emails and the invitations to the Zoom sprints that we're having. And then contributor policy actually leads you directly to a type form where you have the possibility to kind of answer a couple of questions and provide us with the information about where can we find resources to the legal policies, and whether that's a hard law or a soft law and stuff like that. So these 2 links, if you join the collaborative, it also takes you through a type form, but basically the type form is actually just like a 2-minute survey so that we have all the contact information. And
all
yes,
right.
we are in desperate need for more volunteers.
Cool. Well, Anya, thank you so much for sharing this cool project with us. I think you know, you may have reached a few potential collaborators and contributors to the project. It seems like a really cool effort, and definitely we're cheering for you, and please keep us posted. And yeah, please quick round of applause, virtual applause for Anya. Thank you so much for joining us. And I will turn it over. Yeah.
Sorry, you drop your email into the chat in case any more people want to be in touch. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
for joining us, and have a nice evening. I know you're in London, right? So it's already late evening.
Yeah, although I'm going to wait for the rest of the presentation. As far as I saw, they look incredible as well. So thank you for the invite and having me here.
All right. Thank you, Anya. And I will turn it over to John now. And John and Michael, actually, Michael Hastings from the Merlin Foundation has also joined us. And John, you want to take it over? All right, great. Good to have you, John.
Yeah, turn on Michael as well. Thank you, Roland. Hello, everyone. I'm John Tredenik, the Executive Director of the Merlin Legal Open Source Foundation. And I asked Michael Hastings, our Associate Director, to come sit in as well and to say hello. My background is, and I'll share, 20 years as a trial lawyer with a large national US firm. And then I founded an e-discovery company called Catalyst that also ran for about 20 years. We made cloud-based software to help with large cases and the searching and sharing of documents. I sold that company to OpenText last January and really wasn't ready to retire. So I've started my third 20-year segment where I founded Merlin Digital Magic, a software company building cloud-based software using open source technology. And as I was building the company and looking at open source options, I realized there were a lot of open source projects going on around the world, particularly open source legal, but no real central home, no real central place to promote them, to support them, and to offer them to the legal world. So originally I was thinking about just open sourcing some of our products Then I decided to build a foundation, and that's where the Merlin Foundation came from.
Muted.
All right, I've learned the space bar mutes me, so I'll use another button for PowerPoint. Great. So our mission is to improve access to justice and to make legal compliance more efficient through open source software. That means the kind of things you'd think: fostering education, providing a central platform, and distributing open source software through the foundation, or helping people find it through the foundation. It's kind of fun because as I was looking at CodeX, I noticed that you had a mission that was very similar, although I think we're more open source tech focused, but I thought it was a great mission as well. And so we at least are simpatico in that regard. Our team, I introduced you to Michael. I'm the executive director again. Michael's my associate director. He and I have been together for over 10 years at Catalyst. So I dragged him into this project, which he was excited to be part of. Lou Vischer is our CFO, also 10 plus years with me at Catalyst, and a great numbers person. Most important here is our team. And fortunately, I've been involved in e-discovery for a long time and legal technology for a long time, really going back to 1990 when I wrote the Winning with Computers books for the American Bar Association, that I was able to recruit a lot of great people to help us out. So that's our advisory board, and we're adding as we speak, including some on this call. Quickly on open source, many of you know this well, but my legal friends do not, and they're afraid of open source, and that's part of the mission of the Merlin Foundation. So why open source? I thought we'd have some fun with the history of open source to start. Many, if not all of you, know that Linus Torvalds released a thing called Linux, and I won't pronounce it properly, we call it Linux, in the very early 1990s. This was a software to create an alternative to Windows as an operating system, and he made it free. There was a free software movement going on at that time under the GNU public license. But more important than free, he put the source code up for everybody to see and for everyone to modify and enhance and add. Well, that little project was far more than just a desktop replacement for Windows. It was fast, it was clean, it was simple, and it became the standard software driving the internet, running all the internet servers, and at the heart of many, if not most, of the internet programs. I think what's amazing is over 15,000 developers have contributed to Linux over the years, and it really shows what, to my mind, is the power of open source collaboration. And at least by some estimates, 80% of the internet servers run on open source. It's just very powerful, and there are many thousands of open source products that are used all over the world. So for legal, you always have to ask the question, why open source? And my answers are that in many cases, it's the right software. It's the best option because it can be customized and adapted for your purposes. It's free. It can be just as secure as any other software, or frankly, just as weak if it's not developed properly. It's enterprise ready. It's used by the biggest enterprises in the world. Plus, many companies out there support open source and will give you enterprise support, security, bug fixes, etc. Best example in my mind is Red Hat, which many of you know was one of the early supporters of Linux, had no software of its own to speak of, but offered to support it. It sold not that long ago to IBM for something in the $54 billion range. And of course, the last point is it's delivered from the cloud. But the bottom line here, one of our advisory board members and partners is Mary Mack of EDRM, which is a leading international standards group focused on electronic discovery, and she pointed out at its heart, open source is about collaboration. What makes it so powerful is that people can come together worldwide to develop and release free, fully featured software tailored to legal needs. Now, we believe the cloud is an integral part of the second generation of computing, with open source being the first, at least in my book. And it's important to note that it offers speed, scalability, simplicity, security. We do all of our work in Amazon. Of course, there are other options, but it is amazing me by the day the kinds of services and features offered that in the past, Catalyst, for example, had 5 data centers around the world, and we'd have to have all kinds of staff people to manage it. We can build Merlin without buying a single server, I think. And so the cloud itself is built on open source. And what I'd suggest, if we had time to talk about it, is that open source is going to be the catalyst, if you will, for, the cloud is going to be the catalyst for open source, because as we see in legal, there just aren't that many lawyers who are prepared to find open source software, download it, configure it, and run it, but they are ready to consume it. And so I think the next step are companies who are taking the open source software and offering it as a service. The cloud is just growing. Amazon is the largest provider, but many of you know we have the Google Cloud, Azure for Microsoft, Alibaba. Others are trying to get in and play, but you put the two together, at least it's my contention, open source software delivered through the cloud, and you have a new paradigm for computing. And I think it's important for legal as well as the rest of the world, where it's clearly taken a hold. So in a few more minutes that I have, I wanted to just give you some examples of what we're trying to do here. So part of it's education, part of it's support, part of it is to provide a central place for open source projects. So at the Merlin Foundation, we have a central place where we're sharing this information about these products. And we also write about it on our blog. And one of my case studies, I think it's a very important one, and it's an early one. Both of these are early ones, is really the story of Jonathan Pyle, who created a simple software product, simple but powerful, called DocAssemble. And he told me that back in 2013, this is an article we wrote about him, he became enamored with the notion, a good one, that access to justice should be universal and the legal process should be easier for everyone. And here he was in a legal services corporation in Philadelphia, and he took the time to develop a simple but powerful document assembly product called DocAssemble. Well, he put it out as open source, and even without having an open source institution, it has taken off. It's used in 17 to 20 countries around the world. It is used by solos, by law firms, by courts, by individuals, and has proven a great need, even though there are commercial products available. So you can read more about DocAssemble, or go to their website, or you can learn about DocAssemble at docassemble.org. So a good example of just one individual deciding to do something for the good of the legal community, or even broader, and it's taken off. There are user groups and the like, all focused in, even conferences, although I dare say not this year. So a second project called a case study, we're doing in conjunction with EDRM, which I mentioned earlier, Mary Mack and Kaylee Walstead. In the litigation field, which is, of course, my background, I believe there is a need for products, shut that window, for products that provide a free alternative to the commercial products. And one of them is e-discovery processing. In a nutshell, e-discovery processing is the stage between collecting the data and then being able to host it in a search and review platform. This is the set of processes that takes a PST, breaks out the emails, splits off the attachments, pulls out the metadata, and then makes it in a form that can be consumed by the typical litigation support databases. Catalyst, for example, made one of the leading ones over the years. So the case study is twofold. At EDRM, we have a team from around the world that's working to put together processing requirements or specifications to set some standards for the industry on what is required in a typical litigation support or litigation environment. And the idea is this information will be helpful not only to commercial providers, but others who are building software, and particularly open source software. So one of the groups that we connected with, and Mark Kersner, who founded it, is on our board, is called Free EED. EED stands for Electronic Evidence Discovery. Back in 2012, he and his team developed the first platform for data processing and review, and he open sourced it. And it's been used over the years in many countries by a lot of people and a lot of contributors. So this was a natural that we wanted to get behind, and Merlin Foundation and our folks are working with them to enhance the product, to make it meet the needs of the industry, which is what our processing group is doing. And they have released version 8 just in the past few weeks, and have another version 8.1 coming out in the next 2 weeks. It adds a couple critical features, and if you're interested in this area, you can read about it at this address. I'd encourage you to wait a couple weeks because I think the additions are helpful. Michael Hastings at the Merlin Foundation has worked carefully with him. He's spent over 10 years running our support center, and of course knew exactly what clients needed, so he could pass that on. If you want to add a couple words, Michael, why don't you?
Thanks, John. I just want to point out that the project with Free EDD, one of the things we're focusing on is simplicity. It's our assertion that many of the processing tools that are available in the marketplace, specifically commercial ones, are just too much for users with simple needs. So what we've really tried to do is ensure that not only are the expected core features all available, but also we're working on making sure that everything is bug-free and it works well. We do find that many times in the open source environment that you'll find tools that are available but very buggy, and we're just working really on focusing to make sure that that doesn't occur. So we're retooling the user interface now to really expand ease of use, ensuring that the product install and the outputs are easy to use so that you can start using it immediately and accomplish your goals in just a few steps. I do want to point out as well that even though we're using a lot of open source tools to build this, we're continuing to work with the Free EDD team as they work on making sure those core features continue to grow. So over the next couple of months, we're going to be getting into sprints on either a bi-weekly or a monthly basis, just ensuring that the application is robust. We're going to be improving some API usage. And in addition to that, making sure that, as John has pointed out, that we do take advantage of all of the cloud opportunities that are available so that you can expand your usage on this tool.
Thank you, Michael. And we'll work this in conjunction with our...
John,
yeah, sure.
Just because I was hoping that you could leave some time for folks to ask questions.
Sure.
So I don't want to interrupt your presentation, but you could just leave a little time for folks to.
I'll do that. We're just at the end anyway, so it's good. It's just a couple screenshots from the Free EED version that's out there, even a word cloud that you get. But ultimately, I'll just close with this. Our goals are to teach legal professionals about the benefits of open source, to support developers building open source legal software, maintain a repository, publish a listing of legal open source software, and ultimately develop a home for legal source. So I'll just leave this up and be happy to take any and all questions. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, John. This is very interesting. Do you folks online have any questions for John or Michael? So maybe then I'll ask the first one. Is your plan also to become kind of a servicing organization? Kind of like Red Hat that you mentioned before, or is it mostly about education?
It's a perfect question, Roland. My plan isn't or wasn't to become a servicing organization, but my vision of a product like this is not just for electronic discovery, but frankly, anybody who's got a PST, investigators, people who have a mess of files that they want to organize, and I'd like to make it available to them. They can definitely get it through GitHub or and download it and install it. But I'm convinced that the great bulk of the population would be better served if it were delivered up through the cloud. So I'm thinking about having Merlin offer this not as a revenue source at all. Frankly, I'd offer it for free and host it. And my only concern is that it runs on Amazon, and it could be widely used. And as you guys can imagine, Amazon does have charges. If somebody wants to process terabytes of data, there will be costs that I can't avoid. So I've been trying to figure out whether I do that on donations or how we might do it. It is open source, so others could grab the idea. It is not my central business idea and not what Merlin Digital does. We write software for compliance. So I'll be very interested in feedback, because imagine if you could just dial in. You might have to put a credit card in just for the Amazon costs, but they're pennies compared to alternatives, and have this tool at your disposal. I think it'd be really interesting, and I'm trying to figure out how to square that with a foundation model.
Interesting. All right. Any other questions for John? So you're saying you're not, go ahead. Was there a question? You can also use the chat function if you want. You're saying so some of the software is your own software then too? That's open source? So it's not always...
The software I'm showing today is not our software.
Mm-hmm.
Two independent groups that we're just behind and trying to make the world aware of. On the free EED project, our people are trying to help them, again, for free, with nothing expected in return. The same with the EDRM group. We are even willing to put some developers to work on the UI if we think we can improve it, or to work on its automation. But the whole project would be open source,
okay,
and available to everybody. And the only issue I've got is whether there's a real value in setting it up for an Amazon or Google Cloud and covering the cost.
Got it. So Lance is asking whether, besides DocAssemble, whether you have any other open source AI legal related apps listed on your platform, such as NAI or IBP, SCOTUS ML, etc.
Great question. And it actually leads to a pitch. So I started this in November. It's new. We are looking for volunteers, or we are looking for sources. I brought Michael in as associate director. So if you know of products that we can pitch, write about, include in our directory, please, we want them. We want them. When you talk about AI, we are working with some Canadian brilliant data scientists on an AI product that may well be offered in an open source function. We're a little ways from that, but we are looking for help from every part of the world to spread the message. And, conversely, we put up an open source collaboration system called Mattermost. It's easier than Slack. And it's set up on Amazon. We're paying for it, and I'll make it available to other good groups like we just heard with Anna, if they want to do that. And it's 3 clicks away at this stage. So
great. Cool. So Sarah had a question, but I saw Michael answered that already. He shared the link to the free EED website and in the chat if others want to see that too. Scott was asking, how have you licensed e-discovery and free EED, for example? How have you approached licensing questions of open source legal software? And do you use Creative Commons?
Good question.
Zero.
So we are doing Creative Commons for the processing specs. Again, free EED, just like Jonathan Pyle, are independent. They're licensing under the MIT license, and it's wide open. Jonathan Pyle, I forgot what license he's picked. We don't own any of this. We don't control it. We just want to promote it. So both are using open source licenses that allow a pretty extensive collaboration. I was looking at free EED, and their license, just by their statement, even allows commercial people to pick it up and use the product, which is their choice. And so we're the neutral, hopefully home to support all of these folks doing it.
That's great. And maybe last question from music to everyone. Great initiative making it open source, especially for emerging market. If we'd like to contribute technical expertise or code, would that be possible? How do we go about it?
We'd love it. Reach out to Michael or me, and you'll find us on the website as well. And let's start a dialogue. We have people from all over the world who have spoken up, and the more the merrier. This is kind of a labor of love for me after selling my business to Catalyst. Again, I didn't want to retire, and I wanted to give something back to the industry that has treated me well. Same for Michael. He got very excited. He had other options, and I roped him into this. So we're having a ball, and we want to just do some good.
That sounds great, John. And we're cheering for you. This is a very cool initiative, and thank you so much for telling us about it. So quick round of applause, and we'll be tracking the progress of your initiative too. Thank you so much, John. Thanks for joining us. And I will hand it over to Miguel now, who will tell us about the Access to Justice Fellowship Program. And yeah, Miguel, are you there? I can see you. There you
yes,
are.
I'm here. It says I can. Okay, perfect. Okay, can you all hear me, see me?
We can see and hear you well.
Great.
Have you.
So thank you for having me. I just want to give a really quick shout out to Brian Tang, joining us from Hong Kong, and it's 4:30 over there. So shout out to Brian. He was a winner at the Georgetown Law Iron Tech Invitational, had the honor of judging that. And give a quick shout out to Stephen Keynes, who's a former Access to Justice Technology Fellow. So today I am going to share with you about the Access to Justice Tech Fellows Program, our vision, our goals, what we're out there doing, and answer any questions. So here, let me share my screen. Okay, where is share screen button? Boom, boom, boom. Okay, you can all see. Share screen. Okay, boom. Access to Justice Tech Fellows Program. I started this program my second year of law school. I was at Seattle U Law. Our mission is to equip the next generation of legal innovators with the skills, knowledge, and attitudes to build a more responsive civil justice system. And what do I mean by access to justice? A lot of times people talk about access to justice and technology and all these things, but what are we actually talking about, right? Oops, sorry, let me just, cancel that. I don't know how I had this on auto. Pause. So what are we meaning when we talk about these concepts? So really, I group access to justice into 4 categories, right? Legal. The first is legal needs, right? We need to know how who has legal needs. What are they? How prevalent they are. And there's a lot of research around different legal needs, and the ways that people go by assessing legal needs is usually a legal needs study. I think it's really critical right now to understand the legal needs in times of COVID, in times of this global health pandemic. What are the legal needs? Well, we all know that legal needs are going to be exacerbated due from the ancillary effects of the COVID health pandemic in areas such as unemployment, domestic violence, housing, health-related concerns. So what are these legal needs? So understanding legal needs. 2 is legal capabilities, empowering users to know where to go when they have a legal problem. Rebecca Sandiford did a centennial study on legal, users not understanding they have a legal problem. And then what most people kind of consider access to justice in terms of technology is, legal services, right? Most of the technology that is produced in the access to justice space involves legal services. How can we improve the delivery of legal services, whether it's document automation, whether it's web portals, whether it's triage. So most of them fall in the line, but there's also, getting users through the process of triage. So, and getting fair outcomes. So what are we doing? We're building the next pipeline of civil justice leaders. We have law students that are working at different legal aid organizations around the country. Pause right here. They're working for 10 weeks on a host of different legal technology projects, data-related projects, and projects that they are redesigning systems. So they'll work in a quarter legal aid. We have about 26 fellows working this summer, and they work on a host of different projects, from designing web portals to making them more accessible, to data center projects. And these are all first and second year law students, and we really want to get them the exposure around these different concepts, right? So you'll have, within the current landscape of legal education, you have labs, you have classes and curriculum around legal technology and legal services. But we really want to fill the void with putting in, with developing these experiential learning opportunities for law students to work in this space, right? And so that's what we do. We train law students around a host of different disciplines, whether it be, the range of legal technologies, DocAssemble, A to J author, data, design thinking, project management. So we want our fellows to be ready with the skills, but also the knowledge. Like, how do you build cultural competent legal services? How can you assess and address the societal implications of implementing technologies in rural communities? So we want our fellows to be implanted with, like, not only the technical knowledge, but also like the underlying systemic knowledge of, technology and legal services, and just innovation in legal service, period. Because we have a lot of questions that we have not fully addressed, right? We're currently building, and we're currently exploring and innovating, but there are a lot of challenges that need to be examined when developing technology, especially within the immense implications of data, big data, and access to justice. You know, not trying to build systems that, you know, exacerbate the, you know, legal need or the access to justice gap, but build solutions and use data in a way that's inclusive of the communities that we're trying to serve. So again, we started a program at Seattle U. We expanded the program the second year. We're going into the fourth year of the program. I'm currently hosted by the Law School Admissions Council. These are some of our fellows. Our fellows come from all over the country, from all different law schools. We have a total about 84 fellows that came through the program. And I'll pause right here. And from 73 different law schools. So we get law students from all over the country that apply and that take on positions. So in terms of our training, we have, you know, beyond just a 10-week fellowship that we offer students to work on their projects, we have a host of other activities that are embedded within the program to really try to offer a robust experience. So we have our orientation boot camp. This is where it's a 2-day virtual boot camp that we offer to fellows, you know, to provide them the initial training and skills around so they can hit the ground running when they enter their host organizations. We have our virtual skills training center, online virtual skills training. This is a large host repository of curriculum, training modules, resources that fellows can take advantage of to learn skills quickly and be assessed, and in a very, I would say, fun manner. I love to learn, so I wanted to make learning fun, and I'll show you that in a sec. I'll unleash the hood. And then we have our virtual brown bag speakers series every week. We invite innovators who are tried and tested to talk to our fellows just about a host of different things, not only about novel intersections of legal technology and innovation, like the goal of this session, but to, you know, expose students to new careers. There are a host of new careers, you know, blossoming within at these intersections. We want our fellows to know about the different opportunities and careers, and also be embedded with a legal, I call it a justice entrepreneurship mindset. And that is, you know, they have the tools and capabilities to go out and start access to justice startups, right? We have our reflective blogs challenges. We give the fellows prompts, and they go out and write blogs. You know, they have professional online blogs throughout the summer. Okay, so I'm gonna go to our. So again, I talked kind of about the fellowship projects, program benefits. It's a paid fellowship. They get a $5,000 stipend. They get all types of leadership experience. You know, they get their blogs. They get the opportunity to work on actual projects. So not only learning the skills, but being able to apply them in an applicable manner. I think a lot of the skills and training and exposure is to provide experiential and translational learning. So I think we have just been cognizant of the time. So Stephen Keynes, he was one of our 2018 fellows, just a phenomenal gentleman and innovator. He's currently a CodeX fellow. Same with Shelley Reed. She's another phenomenal student. Andres Gonzalez, who was a 2018 fellow, graduated from the University of Hawaii, is now a technology attorney at Legal Aid of Hawaii, Sarah Gate. She worked on online document assembly and plain language services at Pro Bono Net in New York. So I'm quickly going to jump over to our learning management system if we have time right here. So in terms of like learning, I wanted to make it a very experiential environment for students to learn the skills that they need and upskill very quickly. So you have your skills right here. You have you know, a wide range of different
learning management system now. If you turned over to that, you were still on the PowerPoint.
Oh, am I still on the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Oops. Can you see it now or?
No.
Okay, let's see. Resume. Okay, I'm going to, sorry about that. Okay, perfect. Okay. Here, can you all see?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. We have our, this is our learning management platform that students and fellows come into. We have a, you know, fellows can learn by different skills, whether it's data management, cultural competency, legal innovation, and a host of different courses that they can take. We wanted to gamify this experience through badges and leaderboards. So you can get certain badges for certain skills completed and also leaderboards. So by completing a certain course, certain number of courses, you get points, registering for a number of courses, and our catalog of learning, right? So we have, you know, a host of different courses that we'll have available. And they'll have kind of quizzes at the end, job aids included, you know, notes, discussions. There's even a social learning aspect. So really wanted to make the learning kind of iterative in a very like agile environment. Through this platform, we're able to generate over 140 different customized reports about learning. So we're able to quickly gauge how fellows are learning. And also, I think it is good to note that a lot of law students don't have technology skills and you know, different skills around a lot of these things prior to coming. So we're able to actually, through our evaluation component, we're actually able to, you know, gain an assessment of the skills that the hosting organizations and employers need for a specific position, whether it's like more data related, more tech related, get a baseline, conduct a baseline assessment with the fellow, and then provide and direct the fellow in towards an individualized learning path so they can take the specific courses they need to quickly up, train, and scale. I think this method is really intuitive to not only get the fellow, you know, allow them to have the most impact throughout the summer, but really improves and enhances their experience of providing impact in the communities that they serve. Mm-hmm. So overall, we're building an ecosystem of fellows who are coming in, learning skills, getting practical experience, and over time, they will go out and do amazing and impactful work at the intersections of justice, technology, data, innovation.
Sounds great, Miguel. We're already over our time, but I just wanted to read some of the comments to you. So one from Mark Lauritsen, who says he had the pleasure to interact with a number of the fellows who went through your program, and they've been amazing. I concur with you about Stephen Keynes, of course. He's a tremendous asset to our center. and he definitely, I think, you benefited from your fellowship program too. It's great to know that it's also that it's paid. I would be very curious to learn more about the educational materials and the educational experience that you have your fellows go through. And I would also be curious, because legal innovation is a global thing. And many times when I speak in other places, there are students who are asking, to get that kind of experience. So I was wondering if this is only open to students from US law schools, or is it open internationally too?
Currently, it's only open to students in the US, but I think we're making efforts to scale and expand globally. I think there are a host of projects that can benefit and students that can benefit from these opportunities.
Okay, great. And just Anya said she'll be reaching out to you. She would love to see more data being presented, collected, and analyzed with regard to A to J. And Brian and Stephen both asked you for the shout out. And Brian also wants to work with you in expanding it into the Asia Pacific region. So
love the collaboration.
Some action items there, right there. All right. Well, we will have to close, except if there's anyone who has like a final question for Miguel, please pipe up now. But otherwise, we're already 10 minutes over time.
Miguel, hi, it's Susan. If you want to quickly drop your email into chat, that would be awesome. And fantastic presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity, Susan.
Hey, this is Stephen Keynes. Great presentation, Miguel.
Hey, what's up, Steve?
I just wanted to add two great points to your presentation. And the first is that as a technology fellow, what was very impactful to me was that nonprofit and legal aid organizations still have that very scrappy, almost startup mindset. And what I enjoyed is that they gave me so much like autonomy and leverage and the ability to execute projects at my own scale and make decisions. So one day I'd walk in and someone would ask, hey, design a password management system for the entire organization. Or I helped expand the online intake system to different counties. And it was very rewarding to be able to see myself making kind of changes at a systemic level that in the traditional law firm model, you kind of start from the bottom as an associate and they give you kind of that responsibility over time. But what I liked about the technology fellowship is that it enabled me to kind of effectuate change at a large level very quickly, even though I was very new to the organization. And secondly, from the cultural competency aspect, you do learn a lot more about the communities that you serve. So mine was at the Legal Services of Greater Miami. And I remember we had an online intake system that came in 3 languages. And when we made some changes, we noticed that the Creole version was not going up. And at first we thought it was an issue with like some type of the translation, but after speaking with the legal intake paralegals, we found culturally a lot of Haitian people prefer to do business face-to-face. And so you kind of got to be able to design around the preferred method of communication and some of the cultural tendencies of the people that you serve. So I was only able to figure that kind of intuition and certain things out through this position and through data. So I just want to thank Miguel for taking the time to kind of be a pioneer and really establish a platform for law students to be able to kind of step in and assume these roles and kind of like meet these challenges.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I'm happy, and it is definitely my honor to it's very rewarding to do the work that I do, but also when I see folks like Stephen and other fellows that are just out and doing amazing things, it really does have a multiplier effect.
That's great. And so for all of you law students who are on this video conference, you might consider applying for the fellowship. It sounds like a really wonderful opportunity to build some real skills that I think are going to be very marketable and important in this new legal market. So thank you again, Miguel.
Oh, thank you.
Keep up the good work, and yeah, please keep us posted. And to everyone else, all the speakers today, thank you so much for your great work and your great presentations. And to all the participants, thank you for your great questions. And we'll be meeting again next Thursday, same time. And we'll be sending out an announcement early next week so you know who's going to be speaking. All right, so good to see you all. please stay safe out there, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Roland.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.